People expect you to be all these things, and they want you to be a great mom, they want you to be great at business, they want you to be, a great host and everything. But you cannot be 100% of everything, and that's okay. Maybe you're 70% of something, maybe you're 60% of something, maybe you're 100% in something else, but that's again your call.
Hi there, I'm Bex Craig, and you're listening to the Not Just Anything podcast for women who want it whole. I hope you'll join me each week as we hear real stories from real women about how they've curated a whole life by design rather than by default. On this episode, I speak with the unstoppable Supriya Jain. Supriya is an author, a TEDx speaker, a solopreneur, and a single mum. Her story is one of endless resilience, of courage and bravery. And I found myself throughout our conversation being both incredibly inspired and, if I'm honest, also close to tears on a number of occasions. So touched I was by the way in which Supriya talks about her life, her life's experiences, and also the way that she seemingly effortlessly designs her life to rise to the challenge that life might throw her way. I hope you find our conversation as stirring as I did. So without further ado, here she is. A huge warm welcome to Supriya Jain, who's joining me today from India. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Rebecca. It's great being here. Thank you for inviting me to join you today.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have a conversation. And for the context of our listeners, your name was passed along to me by somebody that I know in India as somebody who has really touched them with your story and is somebody that they find to be incredibly inspiring. And obviously, she's not alone because you've been a TEDx speaker, you're an author, you're a coach, you're a solopreneur, you've had your own businesses. So many people undoubtedly have been inspired and touched by you. So looking forward to hearing your story. And so maybe that's a great place to start. Perhaps you could share a little bit about who you are and, a bit about your story that brings you to us today.
I think the story started a long time ago because, when you look at the context where I'm coming from, I come from a very conservative family in Jaipur, Rajasthan. And I was actually the first person, not even the first woman, to get out of my house and actually get an education in the STEM field. So, my mom actually set this precedent for women to actually go out and do what they want in life. And she did that by walking out of an abusive marriage. So she again belonged to this conservative family, and everybody, there were arranged marriages, and women just were homemakers. You got married, you had kids, you took care of the house, and, that's about it. You probably host lunches and dinners, and that was your life. And she firstly had a love marriage, but it somehow didn't work out. And the abuse became too much, and she had two of us, me and my younger sister, to take care of. So she decided that, okay, enough is enough. I'm going to walk out. And that was just something that was unheard of. We're talking about, this was some 35 years ago. People they didn't get divorced. It was, single women was not a thing. But she walked out at that time, and she had two daughters. So people were sort of unwilling to, even give her a place to stay because, it's like a taboo to leave your husband. It's just not the done thing. But I saw her struggle. I saw her work two jobs. I saw her eat one meal a day just so that, she could give us an education, so that, she could give us the best of whatever life she could create for us, right? But in that process, what she gave us was actually way more than just, a good education. She actually became a role model for us. So for both me and my sister, being an independent, strong woman is more important than anything else, right? And I think that what happened has actually put me in a position to deal with what life threw at me later, right? So then I moved out, went to Bangalore, met my husband in college, and, we met when we were 18. We dated for 10 years, got married, and then we decided, to start a family. But he met with an accident while we were in the middle of our first IVF treatment, the first trial that we had to start our own family. It was like he was gone on impact. So it was, I think, the biggest shock that my system ever had to endure, because I grew up with him, right? I spent 15 years with him, and just like all of a sudden he was just gone, And for the longest time, I couldn't even figure out what just happened. I was 33 at that point in time, and I had never thought that, Gaurav and I were supposed to be together. I mean, we were supposed to grow old together. We were supposed to have babies. We had started a business. So it was just, so many things were happening, and then he was just not there anymore. And I was in the middle of this IVF cycle, and my pregnancy result was supposed to be announced a week later. But I think in all this grief and trauma and everything that happened, those embryos didn't implant. But I think, what that did was, it was probably a twist of fate. It was a bit of destiny, maybe, that as a part of IVF procedure, they keep a frozen sample of sperm and they destroy it after your pregnancy results are out. But because mine weren't out yet, I was able to call the hospital and tell them that, store that sample. I'm going to come back and pay for it for the storage. And I think the minute the pregnancy result was out and it said that, I'm not pregnant, my mind was made up immediately that no matter what, I'm going to have this baby. So I went back. I went through multiple IVF cycles. I just sort of went through it all alone in a different city. I did, multiple cycles, multiple treatments. We tried everything, but it wasn't working for me. I even lost my gallbladder because, IVF is not a risk-free process. It does affect your body very adversely. So I had to have an emergency gallbladder removal surgery. So we did all of that. And so it wasn't working. And my only goal was to have Gaurav's baby. So I said, okay, I'll try surrogacy. And that's how I found a surrogate who then, gestated our baby, and Adi was born in 2018. Just like the first time I held him in my arms was on the day that his father had passed away 3 years ago. So I sort of feel that my life has been, I'm sort of a non-believer, like an atheist. I didn't believe in God per se, but I totally now believe that universe has a design for you, and you're going to that point. Somehow things will just, align in a way that you will arrive where you're meant to be. So that's pretty much my story, that what it's been. But, Gaurav's passing has completely changed me as a person and my perspective on life. And I'm hoping that today, we can talk a little bit about where I see my life going from here on now.
Well, I can't believe that you've been able to share all of that with us. I feel very honored that you have. And what an amazing story of courage, of resilience, of also fighting for what it is that really mattered to you. And also I'm really sorry for the hardships that you've had along the way. And at the same time, I imagine that has created the woman that is sitting before me today. That's so strong. So thank you for sharing that big story with us, starting right from the start and kind of giving us that context. And so I guess there's so much in that to unpack already. There's so many decisions there. But one of the themes, as I said, is really this strength, this resilience. Where does that come from? And how did you summon that through all of these experiences that you had?
So to be very honest, I think when you look at it in hindsight, then you see it as strength and courage. But when you're actually living in that moment, it's probably just a matter of the choices that you make in that moment. And I think those choices are a culmination of everything that you have absorbed from your environment, everything that you have thought through, everything that you believe in, right? So it's just who you are and who you've grown to be as a person, right? So like I said, a lot of it comes from my childhood, from watching my mother go through those. So that option that, of feeling like a victim wasn't coded into my system, because I saw my mother deal with all of that, and still, she brought us up really well, So if she could do it, it was like, there's no other option. You're faced with a challenge and you figure out what to do about it, right? So probably when you're in this whole situation where you're backed into a corner where there's nowhere else to go but forward. I think in one of those situations, then you just have two choices, right? Either you can, cry about it. Oh my God, this happened to me. Or you can decide to do something about it. And I think I've always been a doer. So my choices are, I don't sit on the fence. I have to do something, right? So I think that really helped. And honestly, a lot of people tell me that I've been very brave and very courageous. But honestly, at that point, I wasn't thinking of bravery or courage. It was just, here's where I am. What are my options, right? And a lot of people question my choices also. It's not, that people said, oh, wow, you're doing a great thing at that point in time. They said, you're so young. Why do you want to be a single mom? It's, still not a very great thing to be in India. So they're like, if you have a baby now, then, you might not get a chance to get married again. And, there'll be all of these issues and concerns and how you're going to raise a child on your own. But people will always question you because at that moment, they think you're making the biggest mistake of your life, which later in hindsight, they say, oh, wow, you took that decision and that was amazing. So you have to sort of just you have to believe in yourself and your choices is what I would say.
Yeah, I really, really think that is both important and really profound what you just said, because what I'm hearing is like so much empowered choice and looking at your situation and saying, what can I do? What feels right to me? What do I believe in and trust in myself? And you touched on there, sometimes that's not going to be the decision that other people either expect of you, what is considered normal, quote unquote, whatever normal is, or what is, or what people approve of, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's not the right path for you. And so in this climate of, you had a lot of people saying, is this the right thing for you to be doing? Perhaps taking a path that others would not have expected of you. How did you listen to yourself? What are the tools that you have built in yourself to listen, to believe, to find that? Obviously you've got this inbuilt, you said I've been coded that way, but what else in that moment? Maybe just take us to that moment where you're hearing a lot of this dissension, really, I guess, against the decision that you've made.
So I think, again, this is one of the fundamental changes that happened to me after Gaurav passed away, because I realized in that moment that till then my life was following a set pattern, what people expected of us, even especially our families, right? You were sort of just, when you're born, your whole path is charted out. You'll go to school, you will, get a degree, you will get married, you'll have children, you'll have a house, a car, whatever, you get those material possessions, and then you'll retire. I don't know. So they just chart it out for you, right? And we were just following that. And we were workaholics. So Gaurav and me, we were constantly working. Even if it's 2:00 at night, we were very ambitious. We wanted to make a mark on the world. And, so even if it's at 2:00 at night and I'm getting up even just to, use the washroom, I'll check my email, is there something that I can respond to? So it was that bad because I was sort of led to believe that I have to be successful. I have to do certain things. My worth is measured in, do I have a house? Do I have a car? And how proud can my, family be of my accomplishments and all of that? So we were both going in that direction, right? And then he was not there. And I still recall that moment. I had just started a new company, a marketing consulting at that time. And the day he was leaving, I was sitting in this very place that I'm sitting right now. And I had two of my co-founders sitting with me and we were working on a presentation, and Gaurav was standing right there on that door and he said, hey, I'm going and I'll be back in a couple of days. I could have gotten up. I could have hugged him. I could have said, I love you. I could have done n number of things. I was working on my laptop and I said, yeah, I'll see you in 2 days. He never came back. And that made me realize that my life is guided by my choices. I could have chosen to get up at that moment. Or I could have just, it was my choice to just keep sitting and wave at him from here, right? And I can never change that moment again. So then I decided, from this point onwards, no matter what anyone says, I'm going to do what feels right to me. Because the consequence of that decision is mine to bear. It's not theirs, right? So I think that realization did a lot in countering a lot of the doubt that was coming at me from other people, because they were looking at it from their frame, from their context. It didn't make sense to them, but it made like perfect sense to me. I couldn't see any other way that I could have gone. And I said, my choice, my consequences. So that's how I think I was able to handle that.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. I mean, like all of us will play back moments in time, choices and things that we've made. And it sounds like what you have learned and where you are at now is really that you don't want to look back on anything and think, was that the right choice in the moment? That you're just listening so much in this moment about what you want to do and just doing that. And so where does that take us to now? Obviously you have a beautiful child, and what are you up to? How has this created the life that you now have?
I think one of the things that happened was, because I decided to have the child, it gave me a purpose to come out of the grief. Because if I didn't have the child, honestly, I would have probably just wallowed in it, because I came home to an empty house. I couldn't focus on work. The counselor said I, had sort of a freeze response to it, that I was never forgetful. I was very task oriented. I knew I was sorted. And all of a sudden, I put my keys here and I've just forgotten where they are. So I was mentally, I was not in a state to think where I'm going next. But that focus on, I need to have this child, just sort of designed those couple of years, because I was single-mindedly pursuing that this is what I want. Anything else that stands in the way must go, right? So that obviously did a lot to bring me out of that state of inaction, gave me a purpose, and of course gave me my beautiful baby boy. Since he's been here, honestly, he's designing my life. I'm not doing much around it. He's still just, not even 2.5 right now. So a lot of my life is around him. But again, I've made those choices to let him do that, right? So like I said, when Gaurav passed away, I was just starting to build a marketing consultancy, and I was with them for 3 years. We were partners together. And then Adi was born. So I decided, I'm not going to do this anymore. I've spent so much time getting him into my life. Now I'm not going to go back into that routine that I'm working 14 hours days and, neglecting my child. So I quit that, which again, people thought was a stupid decision. But that sounded right to me. So I said, I'm going to quit that and I will just, venture out on my own. So now I work from home. I've been an independent consultant for close to 2 years now, and I've been doing fabulously well in my work. So now I have enough time to spend with him. I have enough time, if I want to take a Wednesday off, I have all the freedom to do that. Right. And that's become sort of my guiding force, that freedom is my core value. And then I try and do everything around it. But yeah, it's been a great journey. Like since Adi's come, it's been amazing.
I can only imagine, based on my own experiences of having children, how much joy and light they bring into the life, and what sounds like it was very much needed also at that point in time. And also, as you said, to bring this memory of this incredibly important person, into your everyday as well. And so many times you've used the word design. Like, it sounds as though you're very conscious about how you live and very aware of the choices that you're making. And so how do you think about what a fulfilled or whole life looks like to you now?
So right now, of course, one is freedom, and the other focus is, now I have a human life that I'm responsible for, right? What he grows up to be is going to be a lot of my influence, because, I'm responsible for teaching him a lot of things. So that's a big responsibility, I think. For 33 years, I lived in some, expectations that others had of me. And those expectations don't go away, right? Still, people tell me, Adi is ready to go to school. Maybe you should send him. What have you thought about his career options? And I'm like, sorry, hold on, wait, that's not going to happen. He is going to be free to make his own choices. All I'm going to do is enable him to be able to do that. So I'm only focusing on these two things. I have redefined what success means to me. So I think when you look at life, success, what you see as success plays a big role in where you're going. So what you chase after decides your choices. And So I said, okay, I don't want to chase after money. I don't want to chase after big house, big car, whatever. I don't have those materialistic criteria for success anymore, right? I don't want to be the CEO of this big company, or I don't want to have 100 people working for me. I don't want all of that. I want to be able to utilize my time to whatever feels best to me and my son, right? And and the extended family, of course. We've thankfully a very loving family. Everybody's just come together to raise Adi together with me. So that's been an awesome support system. But I realized, like I said, what I do now is going to affect him later. So I want to take him away from the rat race. I want to take him away from this is how things are done. So when I talk about designing my life, I always consciously think to myself, am I doing this because this is how it's supposed to be done? Or am I doing this because I really want to do this? And it's an everyday battle, because every day I'll have a conversation with my mom, or I'll have a conversation with my mother-in-law, and they're like, why are you doing this? Maybe you should do that. Maybe you should buy a house. Maybe you should, go join a company back again, because that's where they're coming from. That's their perspective. That's all they have known in life. Somebody who doesn't own a house is like sort of anchorless for them. What they don't know is I want to be without an anchor, because I want to travel with Adi. I want to give him a world perspective. I don't want him to be an Indian living in Bangalore. I want him to be a global citizen. Maybe I'll go live with him in Bali for 3 months and let him, meet the people, get their perspectives, move to another place, live there for 3 months. So I have sort of untethered myself to be able to run around with him and give him that perspective, and which is why I've chosen the work I do, which is why I've chosen not to, hold too many holdings per se, so that I can just, up and move around whenever. And if he decides later that this is not what he wants to do, we rethink, redesign, and come back to what works for both of us. So that's how it is right now.
I feel like I want to kind of like jump through the computer and like hug you and jump up and down, because it's so refreshing. It's so refreshing to hear someone say, I had a conversation with Stephanie Harrison, who was on the podcast from The New Happy, talking about like how we radically need to redefine happiness, and other Trish Healy, who was also talking about success and redefining success, and you're saying the same thing. And I think that there's a very strong message that all of us, and women in particular, need to hear, and that is what you're saying, which is that your own definition of what a life that's worth living for you needs to look like is what it's all about. Like all these other parameters and other people's expectations and the shoulds and you need to, and all of those things, not only you described it as something that you then chase, but it also kind of wraps you in a different level of anxiety and stress when you're not because you're always hustling, always chasing, always trying to get to that. So it's a very provocative way of thinking, probably for a lot of people that are listening. And so you've already said this, but I just kind of want to underline it. So what is this redefinition of success? Let's imagine that you're years from now and you're reflecting on the life that you've led, and you're proud and you're feeling like I did it my way and I redefined success. What does this mean? What does this look like?
So I like to put it in this way, right? So one of the things that I do in my work requires making a lot of PowerPoint presentations. If 10 years, 20 years down the line, I look back, I would want to have made more memories than PowerPoint presentations. So that is what success would mean to me, that I'm able to look back and say, hey, this is the place we went to. Here's what we did. But of course, I understand money is very important, because of course, if I want to gallivant around the globe with my son, I need to have the money to fund that, right? It's not going to drop in from the sky. So I have defined a couple of areas in my life that I want to focus on, the experiences that I want to have, the growth that I want to generate for myself, and also giving back features big in my list, and I want to bring up Adi with that value of giving back also. So I have a couple of things in each of these buckets. If I'm able to look at those experiences, that growth and the giving back, I would consider it a success, and that can come in any way, right? I'm saying that it doesn't have to be just because I'm leading a large enterprise or becoming this woman leader. Will those buckets be satisfied? I have like simple pleasures in life, which primarily involve travel, of course, getting new experiences, trying new things, and yeah, meeting new people. So that I don't know, it maybe sounds a bit hippie, but I sort of think it's the only way to generate happiness. Happiness doesn't come from money. It's just a enabler to help you do things that would actually generate happiness for you.
It seems to me as though, and tell me if this is true, but it seems to me as though this is something that you give a lot of time and thought to. And I get the impression that you are creating this on a regular basis. So just practically speaking, how are you setting these objectives for yourself? Like, do you set goals like habits? How are you actually curating it in a way so that you're confident that you're meeting these success markers that matter to you?
I've designed 3 main areas that I want to do certain things in, which is experience, growth, and giving back. Then I also journal regularly, right? And I keep those things very achievable, right? So let's say I turn 40 in another year. Now I can probably have 20 travel agendas on my list, but that's unachievable, right? And so I keep things that I can do in that time frame. I put some thought into what is doable and what is aligned to things that I want to do, and I create that list. And then this year I've started a monthly planning as well. I found this brilliant journal, and maybe I can send you a link to that later, which actually gives you goals on a monthly basis, right? What you want to believe in this month, what you want to allow this month, what you want to attract this month. So it has all these very interesting phrases. So you get a complete goal grid, and I thought that was wonderful, right? And so for January, I made that goal grid, and I said, okay, I want to help plant more trees. So on my birthday, which was last week, I asked people to plant more trees on my behalf as a birthday gift. So you do those monthly small achievable goals. I said, I want to attract more positivity in my life, right? So in the journal, when I write everything that good that's happened that day, right? So I reflect more on that. So I think that journaling process, the goal setting process, the knowing the 3 key pillars of my life has really, really helped me do the things I actually want to do.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, happy birthday for last week. I hope you had a lovely day. And what a nice idea, planting trees, because I obviously so much waste can be involved in these big celebrations, and yet doing something for the planet couldn't be more meaningful. And doesn't surprise me that you're thinking always of other people based on what you've just shared. But and secondly, the word that I want to sort of highlight here is that you said is planned, because I do think that that's what happens when we live a life that somebody else is driving, that we're just in the passenger seat. Yeah. If we don't put in place the things that really matter to us and start to get thoughtful about prioritizing those in the same way that we would prioritize other things in our life, then of course they're not going to happen. Someone said to me once, if we planned our day as we did from 9 till 5 when we're at work, in the same way that we did from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m., for instance, and on the weekends, we would surely be as effective as we are in our work life. But we don't think so much about our time as really a manifestation of the things that matter to us.
Sure. In fact, yeah, I just want to add one more point up there. And when you do this, right, when you plan, when you design, you have to make some trade-offs, right? So it doesn't come at free. There's a cost associated to it. And that's what makes these choices so difficult, right? So for example, last year, I got a very interesting project, a very well-paying project, but a project that would have needed me to go visit a location 5 days a week. And that was like a 2-hour commute one way and 2-hour commute back. And it deviated significantly from one of the main tenets of my life, saying I want to spend more time with my son and I need more time for myself as well. And this was a 6-month long project, and it would really have made my revenue goals within those 6 months of the year, right? But I said, no, I'm not going to do it, because you have to prioritize what's important to you, and you have to make the tough choice to stick to it. So there's a trade-off. So for the freedom, I paid that cost of not getting that experience, which would honestly have been a valuable work experience. But some things were just more important. That's what makes choices more difficult, and you have to think about it as well. Are you willing to make that trade-off?
Oh, yes, always. I mean, what you're describing to me is by saying yes to that project, you'd have been saying no to all these other things that you had already identified were really important to you. And then vice versa, you say no to that. Obviously, there's going to be something that you're taking a stand for or that you're prioritizing instead. And so you've a 2-year-old, you're a single mom, you've got a business, you're making time to prioritize yourself and the things that matter to you. How do you do all of these things?
Well, one is I keep my schedule very flexible. I don't stick to it rigidly. I understand that things could change last minute. I also have a fur baby, who we are, sort of running to emergency rooms most of the time at 2 o'clock at night because he just tends to get these allergies. So I've realized one thing having these 2 kids has made me realize is life is totally unpredictable and you cannot plan for every minute of it. You need to have a direction, but you should be, willing to change at a moment's notice that, oh, I planned XYZ for today, but that's not happening because my kid needs something else. So I keep myself flexible. And I think the second thing that's strongly advisable, at least from my end, is to get help. And I have a full-time nanny who stays with me because I understand that, you can't depend on family and friends for everything. They're there to support you, right? But they have their own lives to live. So again, this was one of the decisions that was a bit criticized, because in India, you don't really get help to look after your kids. Like nannies is not people said, why do you want to have a baby if, you want a nanny to look after it? Then might not have it in the first place. Again, that was a radical deviation because I said, I don't consider myself to be a mom just because I'm changing diapers or giving my son a bath. My responsibility as a mother is to make sure he grows up into a wholesome human being. And that's what I'm going to do. The nanny can do the rest, right? She can take care of the operational stuff while I look at the bigger picture. So get help wherever you can because you cannot do 100% of everything. And that's something a friend told me once. And she said, people expect you to be all these things and they want you to be a great mom. They want you to be great at business. They want you to be, a great host and everything. But you cannot be 100% of everything. And that's okay. Maybe you're 70% of something, maybe you're 60% of something, maybe you're 100% in something else. But that's again your call. So I think being flexible, understanding that you can't do all of it yourself and getting help are a couple of things that have definitely helped me.
And if I might add to what you're sharing here and what your friend said as well, it's almost as though it's about your own definition of what a great mom. To your said, my role is to build a wholesome human being that's had great experiences and that's living in this way that feels like, empowered for them as well, that they're living the life that they want. And so often I hear this all the time. I'm meant to be a good mom, as you said, a great mom, a great employee, or a great boss, or a good host, as you described. That all of these things is roles that are that we're conditioned to strive to, and yet, have we really defined what that means to us as opposed to what that might mean to somebody else? Like what my version of being a great mum is surely going to be different to other people's and how I think about what I want, how I want to show up. And all of this is simply a question of design and curation.
True. Very true.
Yeah. So one of the things that as we talk about, I'm not enough of this or I'm just that is these labels that sometimes we can give ourselves or that other people can give to us. How does that show up for you in your life?
So, like I said, it's an everyday conversation. It happens in all fronts. In fact, there was a troll a couple of days back on my social media. I don't even know her, right? She followed me and she left comments on my feed where she said, because I talk about being unstoppable, right? My premise is that if you make the choices that matter to you, nothing can hold you back. So she said, why are you talking about being unstoppable? If anybody wants, they can stop you at any time. You think you're too much and, you mix personal and professional life a lot. And I'm like, yeah, because that's me. What I'm trying to say is that labels will come from anywhere. People who have no relation to you, who don't even know who you are, what you do, will come and offer their judgments and opinions. So you need to not go on a back foot. You need to stand your ground and say, if you're saying this, I'm going to call you out on it. And most often, if you see the people who label you or who try to bully you, do that because they are hiding behind, some safeguards. And when you pull those safeguards off, they don't have anything to stand on. So like I said, you need to have that little bit of a courage or a little bit of belief in yourself to say, I'm going to call you out, and let's see how you do then.
Mm-hmm. Oh gosh, yes. I mean, people are incredible on this. I think on social media they forget themselves a little bit, but you are unstoppable. I really feel that in this conversation. I mean, I said at the start, there's so much resilience, there's so much courage, there's so much bravery, there's so much empowered choice, there's so much designing your life and thinking about things, and of course, because of all of that, you are unstoppable. And so it's all of this. I mean, honestly, I have to tell you, I'm so inspired. I feel so inspired by your story and also about the way that you are continuing to show up as a mom and living the life that you want. And I think that for a lot of people, this might feel so far away from where they are now, because maybe they're not really yet fully stepping into themselves and their power, which is what I hear. And I'm wondering, just for some sort of like hashtag real talk, what happens when you don't feel as resourceful as things seem to be, or when you maybe when you get to a little bit of like negative self-talk, or do you? I mean, are these things that happen to you, and what are you doing when this shows up for you?
So yes, low moments happen all the time. Self-doubt happens all the time. Because, you tend to feel, and of course, a lot of the talk that happens around you tends to affect you, right? If somebody's telling you, and that's, again, I'll just dive back into a childhood story here. For the longest time as a kid, I heard that other people are always better, right? There was a lot of competition happening between cousins, between family members, saying somebody else is more resourceful than you are, somebody else is more intelligent, somebody else gets more marks, somebody else is better looking. So for the longest time, I dealt with body positivity issues. I dealt with maybe I'm not good enough. So I never even spoke up in class. I knew all the answers, but I said, maybe I'm not correct. And that lingers to date. So I do question my choices. I do rethink, double think, all of that. But I have sort of decided that once I have made a decision, I'm not going to regret it, because we all make mistakes. I can't say that I'm infallible and whatever decisions I've always made have been right. That's, that doesn't happen. But what you can do is deal with the consequences of that decision, right? So you've decided, okay, I'm going to go down this route. This is my decision. And whatever happens as a consequence of this, I'll deal with it when that comes, right? I'm not going to regret saying, oh my God, I made a mistake. Now what do I do, right? Because that's happened. That's in the past. You cannot go back and change the past. You can only focus on what's going to happen next. So just figure that out. The other thing that I do, and I realize, because I do tend to, I'm sort of an introvert, and I just tend to sort of wallow a little bit sometimes. And people can't get me out of the funk once I get into it. Right? So it's not somebody will help me do that. I have to deal with it myself. So I have something, and I keep talking about it also. I made a list of things that make me happy, and I call it my happy hacks. And these are small things, right? Go for a walk, read a book, bake something. Little things. So every time I'm feeling, oh my God, this has been a terrible day and I can't find anything good in it, I go do one of the things in that list, and it takes me like half an hour, 40 minutes max, right? But because those are things I like to do in any case, that puts me in a better mood. And I think once you get into a nicer mind frame, you are able to take better decisions also. And I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And it's such a genius idea. It reminds me very early in my career, a leader that I really respect and that I was working for encouraged employees to have a happy folder in their inbox with emails that you might receive from people that make you smile, or that have said something about you that they admire or appreciate, or whatever it might be. And it's reminding me of that, and yet I think it's even better because it's self-given and self-directed, and it's about saying, like, what are the things that restore me, to make me feel alive, to make me feel whole, to make me feel myself again. And yeah, as you say, sometimes these are really simple things. It's not complicated.
I think most of the times it's really simple things. And I also like to tell people, because they said, a lot of times when I tell people my story, what happened with Gaurav and me and, this whole childhood things, and they said, oh my God, you people must have loved each other too much. But if you had asked us at that point in time when we were together, we were like, yeah, like he's there, I'm there. But we depended on each other for such ordinary things. I like to say that a lot because, like love is in the ordinary things. You can do big gestures anytime. You can do big things. You can show appreciation. You can show a big success or whatever. But it's the small everyday things that really make a difference in your life. And honestly, like just an anecdote, why it took me 10 years to decide to get married to Gaurav is because the day I decided I'm comfortable him leaving a wet towel on my side of the bed is when I said I'm going to marry you. Because that is like an irritant you cannot get rid of, right? You have to make peace with it. Okay, this towel is fine. And I think that makes a big difference.
Yeah, and it sounds as though also at that point in time, it's there are so many things that we all have to be these little idiosyncrasies that can be very frustrating to somebody else, and yet you're taking that choice that I'm at a place now where that I'm so okay with that because I know that there's other things that I love. And so I'm just curious because we're speaking to women, mostly women that are listening to this podcast and a smattering of men. What is the message here that you want people to hear, that you're waving a flag for, that you're shouting from the rooftops?
Honestly, a lot of times I want to talk a lot more about individuality because like I said, coming from a conservative family, there were always gender roles assigned, right? That men do this and women do that. And then when I got out of that and I came into this corporate life, there was a lot of blending where it said everybody can do everything and, maybe women should lean in a little more and maybe, men should do that. What I believe in is that everybody has individual capabilities, right? And sometimes I really feel, and I don't know if that's even relevant to say here, but there are global leaders who have babies and they're going and getting into work 3 days, 4 days later. Why? Tell me one man who's given birth and gone back to work in 3 days. It's like you're creating a new life, right? You've just given birth. You have done something that the other person hasn't. Why should you be, measuring yourself with what they can do, right? And there was a very nice, I think a cartoon that was doing rounds on social media a few years ago, and that talked about equality, equity, and justice. So it said equality means you give everybody the same resources and expect them to utilize them the same way and, everything will be fine. But that doesn't work. You have to give people the resources, forget about giving them. You have to look for the resources that make you perform better. You could be a man, you could be a woman, you could be anywhere on the gender spectrum. You could, be anywhere on the ability spectrum, but go after the things that enable you to do things you want to do. Don't fall into stereotypes that others have attached to you. And don't fall into our expectations also. Like I said, if you feel that after giving birth, you need 6 months off, you need 6 months off. And I think throughout this narrative, that's what I've been saying. You define what you want. You figure out what will get you to that point and then go after those things. Shut out all these other noises because people like to comment. And my message would be this: look at the individual and, look at what drives you, your goals, what you want. It's your life. It's one life. You're never going to get it back. So why waste it on what other people want?
I mean, yes. Yes is all I can say. That is absolutely, that's what I am dedicating my career to. That's what I want people to think. And I think you articulated it beautifully. And I think there's also a little bit in that around allowing yourself to shine brightly as you make these choices that are your own. There's a Marianne Williamson quote that I'm completely obsessed with that says, who am I to be brilliant, but who are you not to be? Playing small doesn't serve the world is what she says. And I think it's right. Like as you make these choices, people will come towards you and some people will probably walk away. And that's okay, because at the end of the day, if you're judging yourself against what matters to you, then that's what matters. And that's what you're going to reflect on.
When you say about the shining piece, I think I remember this thing which I was attending a conference and Lisa Nicholas was talking there and she said, don't let others dim your shine. And if you shine too brightly for them, ask them to put on their glasses. because, you know.
Yes.
So
Yes, that's not your problem. Yeah. That's not your problem. And actually what you do, the brighter that you allow yourself to shine, is that you give permission. I must say this almost every podcast. You give permission for other people too. Yeah. You start to say, it's okay. Yeah. It's okay. Like what you have just done. And I'm sure as people are listening to this, they will be thinking, it's possible for me to do that too. Because look at what you have gone through, the hardships that you've walked through, the decisions that you've had to make in your life. And here you are still standing here advocating for choice, advocating to say to people, it's okay to be quote unquote controversial, maybe, but to do the things that you want. And that creates a ripple effect that other people think that they can too, that they've given permission to.
True.
And I hope that other people too will take some of these elements that I can see are so innate within you, that you said have been coded into you, but also that you have manifested for yourself. Because truly, I think that this is the key. This is really the key. So honestly, I'm so grateful. I'm really grateful for you going there today, for sharing all of these different stories, and really touched and honored that you came onto this platform to share. So huge thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a lovely conversation. I loved it, and it was like so comfortable. Really appreciate you listening to all of it. Thanks a ton.
Thank you so much for joining me today for another episode of Not Just Anything for Women Who Want It Whole. If you enjoyed our discussion, be sure to subscribe to our weekly podcast and leave us a review. Otherwise, thank you so much for being here with us, and we look forward to having you join again. And remember, be brave,